On Friday, Ottawa police began moving in on demonstrators who had been out there on Canada's Parliament Hill to protest the government's overreach and their COVID mandates. And by Sunday, the police had a firm grasp over the area. Here with me now to tell us what took place on the ground is Rachel Emmanuel. She's a reporter for the Canadian digital newspaper iPolitics. Rachel, welcome to Washington Watch.
Thank you for having me.
All right, can you just describe what you witnessed firsthand as you were there on Parliament Hill?
Sure. So as you mentioned, it began on Friday. Actually, while on Monday, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau invoked the Emergencies Act, which was going to give the police more powers to address the protesters. All levels of government had been asking them to leave for, 3 weeks, and they showed no signs of leaving. So the government decided to forcibly remove them. So I would say the city of Ottawa was kind of holding its breath in anticipation since Monday, waiting for police action. We knew that police action was going to be coming, and we could see it sort of escalating with just the number of police that were coming into the city. I remember specifically on Thursday and Friday, a lot of us here in media expected maybe there to be some action in the middle of the night. We kind of thought that would make sense just because there was, generally speaking, less protesters in the city in the middle of the night. I think that's fairly obvious, and it was just a bit quieter. But no, the police actually waited until Friday midday to move. So what happened is I was kind of walking along Parliament Hill on Friday morning at around 11 a.m. And there was one structure there. It was a stage, and typically throughout the week since the protesters arrived 3 weeks ago, there was always music playing from the stage. A lot of times there were speakers. They even had some live bands at times, and people would be dancing. And that structure was directly in front of our Peace Tower, which is on our traditional House of Commons, which is currently under construction and is not being used. So around 11 a.m., there's people speaking, there's people dancing, and all of a sudden one of the speakers says, there is a police force coming up from the east, but I want everyone to know that we're here legally, and I want everyone to just remain calm. So people kind of knew the police were going to be coming at that point. So I walked down a little further east where the police had been kind of coming up towards the hill. And what you saw there was you had a wall of police officers, and they were all lined up so that no one could kind of get in and out behind them. And they were just walking forward, pushing protesters up as they walked up towards the hill. And anyone who stood in their way was just pushed. The police did not stop. They, at the same time, would all agree to move forward, and they would walk about 5 to 8 feet every single time. And as I mentioned, for protesters that did not move, they were pushed. The police continued to walk forward. And they continued that throughout the day on Friday. They did not get very far at all. I was shocked. I left for a couple hours and I came back, and they had hardly made any progress. And then this was around, I want to say 5 p.m., 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They were now in front of the Chateau Laurier, which is just a very famous hotel here in Ottawa, and the Senate building of Canada. And when I mentioned earlier in the day, they had been actually on the corner of the Senate building. So they had come around the corner and up to the front of the Senate building, and the whole from like noon till 5:30 p.m. That was all the progress that they had made. And it was at this time that you saw a lot of the videos of horses coming through the crowd, and two individuals got trampled, actually. Sorry, it looks like you want to jump in there with a question, so I'll give you a sec.
Well, let me just ask you, I know you had a lot of interaction with the demonstrators. What has that been like? Were the demonstrators, were they resisting the police, or are they just there kind of making a statement, as you said, that they had a right to be there and they were just exercising that right?
Certainly. So it was a bit of a mix. You had a lot of demonstrators who definitely did not want to get caught in the police and, get caught in the pushing and the action there. And so they were making it known that they were there and they felt that they had a right to be there. And so but then when the police came towards them, they backed up. And then you had other demonstrators who tried to resist moving back, and they would sort of keep themselves planted when police did push forward, and sort of try to stand there, maybe shove back a little bit. And then you had others in the crowd who were saying, be peaceful, don't fight with the officers. So there was a fair mix of things, but I didn't see much violence from the demonstrators. They, at most, from what I witnessed firsthand, and obviously I was not everywhere at once, the most I saw was them trying not to move by just resisting the police when they did push forward.
So prior to the police coming on to the scene Friday and Saturday and over the weekend, did you see any other violent behavior among the demonstrators that have been there for a couple of weeks?
Sure. So this has been something that has been talked about quite a bit. And on one side of the coin, you have people who are living in the city of Ottawa who say that they have felt very unsafe here and they have felt very threatened since the protesters arrived towards the end of January. I did not witness any violence in my encounters with the protesters. I frequently walk around Parliament Hill. I live very close to the area. Um, One of the issues that I heard was a lot of people in Ottawa like to wear their masks outside just for COVID reasons. And also in Ottawa, it is extremely cold here. It's between -20 and -30, probably about -4 degrees Fahrenheit, if I have that correct. So it is quite cold. Some people like to just wear masks when they walk outside because of even the winter weather being so chilly. And I definitely heard reports of people being harassed for wearing masks on the street. At one occasion, I was leaving the House of the West Block, which is one of our Parliament buildings. And I did see a woman walking around with a loudspeaker on, yelling at people through the loudspeaker to take their masks off. But it was just sort of like those verbal, I guess, harassment, if you could describe it as that, that I witnessed firsthand. I didn't see the protesters engage in any violence towards any residents of the city of Ottawa at any point.
Rachel, final question for you, based upon what you've observed there for the last few weeks. What's next?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I think it's sort of what everyone is wondering. On one hand, we have the protesters who are extremely upset. They feel that they had a right to be protesting in the city of Ottawa. And for many of them, they've lost their businesses. And this was sort of the one thing that they had left to do, I guess, to sort of take action and call on the government. We know that some of the truck convoys are still parked outside of the city of Ottawa, about 40 minutes. I did speak to some of the truckers yesterday, and they told me they think they might do a convoy back home just to sort of be like one last hurrah for their movement. I'm hearing other talks that maybe there will still be demonstrations in Ottawa on the weekends. It's hard to say what's next. We know that the federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act, and they haven't relinquished those powers despite the protesters now being removed from the city of Ottawa. And they're doing that, they say, because they believe there is still a threat that protesters could return. So at this point, it seems unlikely that protesters are going to be able to come to the city of Ottawa, which is still under police lockdown. There's still quite a few police checkpoints that you have to go through to even access the downtown core and even to get off the highway. So, I mean, for the people who came here because they wanted to have themselves heard, I don't know what's next for them. We do know that the government is also going to be following protesters who were involved, and they said that anyone who was involved with the protest can expect charges and repercussions for that.
Well, amazing. We'll continue to watch that because it certainly sparked other efforts in other parts of the world, including here in the United States. Rachel, great to talk with you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.